Hi, everyone. Welcome. My name is Lindsay, and I work with Magnified Giving. And I'm here today with Kelly and Karen. And we're here today to talk about veterans and military as a social cause. I'm going to have each of these guys introduce themselves and share a little bit about their organization and their mission and how it relates to veterans and military. Kelly, could you kick us off?
Sure. Thank you for having me, Lindsay. I'm glad to be with Karen here too. We're all in this together supporting our veterans. For Paws for Ability, we serve veterans in addition to children and adults with disabilities. The unique thing about our veterans program is that they do not have to pay a fee for service in order to get a service dog. So that's a little bit different than how we handle our children and our adults. And the reason we do that is because we believe that our veterans have already paid the price to keep us free in this wonderful country. That's what we do. And we have usually place maybe between 5 and 10 service dogs with veterans each year versus with children, we place over 100 a year, and adults maybe one or two. Thankfully, there's a lot of wonderful other organizations out there that support veterans. So that's why we don't have as many applications for our veteran service dogs as we do our children. We're really fortunate in our industry that we do have a lot of other support for our veterans.
Awesome. Thank you. And Karen?
Hi, I am Karen Banfield, and thank you, Lindsay, and everyone at Magnified Giving for giving us this opportunity. And as a side note, Kelly and I previously discussed this. I work at Miami University for my full-time job, and actually a lot of her dogs come onto our campus and helps some of the students engage. So it's fun how we have all these different crossovers that kind of happen, and you can see really what a small world we live in. So I represent the regional chapter, and I'm also a board member for Racing for Vets. And we are an organization that helps veterans who have a lot of PTSD, they have a service-connected disability, or they've just been in the service and they're out and they're done, and they want to come out and they want to go racing. And they may not have been diagnosed with PTSD, but they just have anxiety about going into large places, interacting with public and people, and what's going to happen. So we get them into our indoor event. And so once a month, we invite veterans to come out and race at full throttle indoor karting. And it's typically one Saturday a month for 2 hours, and they are allowed to come out and they race for free at no charge. And we usually do donuts, and we have sometimes we have coffee there, and just allow them to interact in a safe place where it's only veterans, and they're not going to be judged if they go to put a helmet on and they get claustrophobic, or one of the engines backfires and they have a bad reaction to that. No one there is going to judge them. They're all going to support them. And then those individuals who enjoy the indoor event, we also race go-karts outdoors. And we have 5 carts that are built and maintained by veterans. And so they do all of the work on them. They're responsible for them. They race them. And as part of what we do, since everyone has been so generous to give to us, and we've really built this from the ground up, we also give back through another program called Honor and Remember. So every day that we race outdoors, we honor and remember a fallen hero at our events. So yeah.
Very good. Thank you guys. Well, good stuff. I am excited to kind of hear, you're both supporting veterans and military, but in very different ways. And I think that's really awesome for students to see. And I just want to say for the students, there are a lot of other organizations that support veterans and military in a lot of other ways. So I encourage you to check out some of the other organizations on the Magnified Giving website who are registered, or just, look around for other organizations in our areas. There are a lot of different ways to support veterans and military. So we just kind of have a small sampling today. So I want to ask you, Karen and Kelly, what is the impact of supporting veterans and military on the community? Why do you feel that supporting veterans and military is important, and why, do your organizations invest that time and energy into doing that?
I'll go ahead and I'll start off. Veterans, especially in this area because we have a very large veteran population. Um, the work they have done fighting for our country and giving us our freedom is so important. Um, coming back, trying to figure out how to interact and how to integrate from being in a system where you've been told what to do, when to do it, how to do it, and coming back home and you're out of the service now and you don't know how to go out and get a job. You don't know how to take initiative necessarily and how far you can go. So even just interacting with regular people, what do you start a conversation about? How do you make friends? How do you stop moving around from city to city to city every 2 years and really start to form those true relationships that are people that are going to be your best friends differently than people who have had your six the entire time. So from that standpoint, it's trying to get them a better work-life balance, a better social life balance. And because most of our veterans, I won't say all, but most of our veterans they're very good people. They need that extra little hand to figure out how to reintegrate from military life to normal life. So that's what we try to offer in a fun way.
Yeah. Well, I'll echo a little bit of what Kerin said. You know, when you're in the military, you're very isolated, you know, and you're with your brothers and your sisters in your, you know, troop, and you all of a sudden come back. And for us, especially, you know, we serve veterans with disabilities. So all of them have a disability, and they didn't have that before they went into service. And so to find yourself finally, you know, into reintegrated back into society is one hurdle, and then to all of a sudden have this disability is another hurdle. And so the more organizations that can help the reintegration part, and what Racing for Vets does is doing it in a fun way, and keeping, you know, people in the community and getting them out and about. And the same with Paws. You know, a dog is fun. It's also some responsibility, and it allows the veterans, when they're out in public, for people to come up and say, "Oh my gosh, what a beautiful dog. What's your dog's name?" And to really get them out of their head, and out of maybe what maybe they had been thinking about in their own little mind or world, and getting them to talk about their dog and having something fun to talk about and celebrate with that other person. And so, and then also on the flip side, being able to help with whatever their disability is, whether it is PTSD, the night terrors are real. The dog can wake them up if they start to hear some, you know, sounds from their voice, or they're wrestling around. The dogs can wake them up, lick them, comfort them after, help them fall back asleep. But then with the other disabilities, you know, hearing impairments, mobility impairments, you know, diabetic as well. A lot of our Vietnam veterans have come back with and developed type 2 diabetes. And that is, there's been studies that talk about Agent Orange being a factor in that. And so being able to alert to the highs and lows, just really helping them lead a more independent life so that they can have more fun and be in the community and live like the rest of us are, you know, you know, so gladly able to do because of their sacrifice.
Yeah, absolutely. Very good. What do you feel, I mean, from your perspectives and from your different organizations, what do you see as, you know, some of the greatest challenges facing this work at this time?
Mm. For us, one of the biggest challenges we have is getting veterans to come out and commit to our outdoor program. So it's reaching out and connecting with the veterans. That's probably our biggest struggle. Obviously, there's funding that has to happen because we're racing go-karts. They're consumable tires and fuel and parts and whatever. But it's really getting those people out to practice and and wanting to commit to the team, support them, wrench on the carts. Um, that's where we struggle.
For Paws, there's so many other wonderful causes. There's so many people in need. And sometimes people don't really think about the veteran and military community as those in need. And if you don't know a veteran personally, then you may think, oh, they always look tough and they have their, really sharp uniforms and so on. And they'll be fine, they're adults. Because sometimes people tend to maybe want to help those that they consider more vulnerable, like children, people that are in hunger, things like that. And those are really important causes. But I would encourage students to get to know a veteran, talk to a veteran, and understand or read a book about a veteran if you don't know a veteran. And you'll understand, how much that they give up for all of us and how important it is for us to now give back to them, to thank them for their service and to help them in any way that they need.
Absolutely. So Kelly, you mentioned a little bit earlier, that there are a lot of other great organizations who are doing this kind of work. And I just wanted to ask for both of you, how are your organizations able to collaborate with other organizations in the community to achieve your mission and to support veterans?
Well, at Fort Paws, I mean, we are on several different veteran resource lists. And, certainly we're always telling veterans, have you gone to this resource? Have you gone to this resource? And vice versa. One of the organizations that we do collaborate with, though, on a regular basis is Quilts of Valor. And I don't know if either of you have heard of this organization or if the students have. But what we do at our graduation ceremonies when the dogs graduate with their service dogs, what did I say? When the veterans graduate with their service dogs, the Quilts of Valor group, they come in and they present a quilt to the veteran and the dog. And the dog, of course, isn't, putting the quilt on, but we use it as what's called a mutt mat or a place where the dog will sit in a certain time and, tell your dog to go to place. Like if somebody's coming into the door, into the house or whatever. And so that's really a neat opportunity to honor our veterans in a different way at graduation. And a lot of time, I mean, the quilts are gorgeous, and they're just a wonderful group. And so that's one of the groups that we, collaborate with at Fort Paws during a graduation. But there are some wonderful resources out there, and we're always encouraging our veterans to seek all the resources available because they deserve it.
And at Racing for Vets, one of the big resources we use is we actually connect with the Fort Thomas VA, and they have a program there for PTSD. And so we work with them, and that's where a lot of our indoor participants come from. We work with the Joseph House as well, which is a shelter for homeless veterans who have had alcohol and drug related addictions. So it's helping them get through that, get into a safe place to live, and then work on finding employment and finding a good place to live. We've worked with the Dayton VA a little bit. We don't have a good contact up there, and Dayton's almost too far of a drive down to Cincinnati. So, but we have a couple of our vets participate in different groups as well, and so that's how we get some of our crossover. And I also participate in a sport that is wheelchair rugby, and so we have a lot of veterans who come back who have lost limbs and have physical lack of ability, and so they are bound to wheelchairs, and we get them out playing a sport. And so I get some crossover there and can invite them to come down and hang out with us.
Very cool. I love that. So I want to ask both of you personally, what brought you into the nonprofit sector, either working in the nonprofit sector or volunteering? What kind of led you on this path? And maybe specifically, I know Kelly, for you, for Four Paws, there are a lot of, other social causes that you align with. But for you, Kerin, specifically, how did you end up volunteering for an organization that specifically supports veterans? But I'd love to know, I love sharing with students how people end up in careers or in volunteer positions for nonprofits.
Um, I am an accountant by trade, and I have almost always worked in either small business or in the not-for-profit sector. So I work in higher education, and I very much love the not-for-profit type mentality and the way things are done for the most part. And I happened to be talking to a friend of mine, and we were talking about go-karts. We were actually at Full Throttle. We were talking about go-karts and racing, and they were just like, hey, this is something we really want to do. And my husband, Aaron, actually owns Full Throttle. We own Full Throttle. And so that's where we started kind of spitballing the idea and saying, well, what if we opened this up and we did indoor racing here once a month? And that's kind of how the program was built. And we started indoor, and then we started like, ooh, here's a chassis for $100. Okay, let's go buy a motor at Harbor Freight for $500 and put it on there. And that's kind of how we started. And we just built it from the ground up. Aaron's brother he's actually currently in the military. So because we've got, and my father was Air Force. So we've got that military connection in our blood and in our family. So being able to give back and serve other people, work with people. I think I like not-for-profit just because you have that personal connection with so many people.
Yes, I would agree with Kerin. I used to be in the for-profit world for many years, and about 14 years ago, I was getting my master's of business administration at night, working during the day for a for-profit entity. And our final capstone project was to find a nonprofit or for-profit, meet with them, figure out their biggest business problem, write a business plan. And so we worked in teams. We all worked in the for-profit world, thought, let's do something with dogs, in the nonprofit world. And we just did a Google search and found Four Paws, and it was really grassroots at that time. They weren't even $1 million yet in revenues, very small. I think placing, maybe 25 dogs a year, something like that. And met with them, wrote a business plan, a cause marketing plan. And after I graduated, I just kept thinking about the organization, and I then joined the board of trustees, ended up being president of the board, and then realized that I wanted to continue. And so I became development director, and I've been on staff for almost 11 years. And, the only thing I miss about the for-profit world is the great benefits and salary. But other than that, no, I honestly would not change at this point, because what I feel every day is so different than what I felt in the for-profit world. I feel like I'm doing something really valuable, and I wake up every day excited. And so, especially when you get to meet the clients, and we started off really helping adults and children, and then we added the veterans program about 9 years ago. And it's been wonderful meeting all of these veterans. One of them, we talk at least every month, and he does whatever Four Paws needs. If I need him to go and talk to a group at Cincinnati Museum Center for Veterans Day or something, he'll always be there with his service dog, and they will do anything for you. They've always got your back, so to speak.
And I think I want to add to what Kelly said. I agree with everything. And I think the other thing that now I'm going to get emotional. The other thing that I really like is that not only are we touching lives, but I know we're saving lives. So
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that this is supporting veterans and military is a really good example of um, a cause that impacts people, like individuals, very deeply. There are a lot of causes, maybe, hunger, where you're supporting a lot of people by providing meals, and that's really, really important. But, you can impact a ton of people in small ways, and those things add up. But this is an example of providing a service dog to someone. That's a huge impact on that person's life. Providing an opportunity for them to race, and get out socially, and meet people and be in a safe place. That's a huge impact on that person, on those individuals, really deeply. And I think for students, that's something that you have to consider. There are certain, maybe you are attracted to the idea of impacting a ton of people, in small ways, or maybe you're really attracted to this idea of impacting one person, or 25 people, or 5 veterans a year, getting service dogs, or how, a smaller number of people, but impacting those lives very, very deeply. And both are important. Both of those options are
mhm.
really, really important. But I would just like to kind of point out that if you're interested in this idea of impacting our veterans really deeply, it sounds like these are two organizations that are doing that. So you just kind of have to look inside yourself, and which resonates with you more. What kind of things are you passionate about? So just something to consider. The last question I want to ask you guys is, if the students listening are resonating with this, they are interested in supporting veterans and military. What would be your advice to them? How can they get involved in this cause? And how can they start supporting veterans and military?
Well, I'll go ahead and start. So, Karen alluded to the fact that her day job is at Miami University, and for Paws, we have a presence of service dogs on about 25 different college and university campuses, and usually within a 3-hour radius of, the Cincinnati area, Cincy, Dayton, Columbus area, and we we're always looking for more volunteers to help. And even if you don't want to be a primary handler, which is a lot of responsibility, it's almost like having a child while you're in college, which can be tough. You can be a sitter. You can get involved in any of their fundraising events that they have. And I know with COVID, that's a little more difficult. Or not as many in person, but that will change eventually. But just supporting the organization in that way. And then, meeting veterans too. Again, just, reaching out and thanking someone for their service, and just asking them questions. If you do see them with a dog, and making it a good experience, and, for them. And that's really kind of what I think my recommendation would be for the students.
And I agree with that. I think the easiest thing we can do is just, if you know someone is military, go up and thank them for their service and their sacrifice. For us, we can use volunteers at our indoor events, but unfortunately, due to COVID, we haven't been able to run them because the Fort Thomas VA, is not allowing their participants to go on field trips. We just wrapped up our outdoor race season. We actually have a race this weekend, and we have a race Halloween weekend. So, and then our race season will be done, and we're actually going to go into fundraising mode. Our largest fundraiser ended up not happening the way it normally does each year. So we got about half the funds that we need to actually survive, and to put everything together for next year. So we're going to go into fundraising mode. So if anyone wants to do fundraising or help out in any way, shape, or form, we're more than welcome, more than willing to take you on. And I would say just find something that you're interested in, and that hits you in your heart. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Good stuff. Well, Kelly, Karen, thank you guys so much for your wisdom and your insight, and for sharing with these students. Students, like I said, I encourage you to check out some of the other organizations that support veterans and military. Reach out to Kelly or Karen if you have thoughts or questions about their organizations or if you're interested in learning more. But thank you so much for watching, and yeah, we'll catch you in the next cost panel. Thanks.